Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. This is Chaim ben Pesach. On another video, we talked about some of the background in regard to my case, where I'm trying to make Aliyah. I'm trying to immigrate to the land of Israel for many years now. I was thrown out of the land of Israel, expelled against my will, and they have not allowed me even to visit, at the same time that they invited the Arab Hitler, Yasser Arafat, and 80,000 Arab Muslim Nazi terrorist mass murderers into the land of Israel. So we spoke about the terrible injustice. We spoke about the utter immorality, the insanity, the sheer evil nature of this decision to expel me from Israel. On this video, though, we want to speak about what is our strategy for overturning this decision, because there are only two ways this decision can be overturned. One is if the Interior Minister of Israel decides to let me in. If the Interior Minister lets me in, under the law in Israel, he has the authority to let me into Israel. So if we can convince him to let me in, I would get in and I'd be able to immigrate to Israel. But he's a leftist, so it's quite possible that he will reject our appeal. We're going to appeal to him. My lawyer, Yoram Sheftel, who is one of the best attorneys in Israel, is going to be writing to him, and we're going to be sending him other messages, so we hope that we're going to be able to convince him. But if he says no, the only other avenue is to go to the Israeli Supreme Court, which is an extreme left-wing court. So we're faced with an extreme left-wing Interior Minister and an extreme left-wing Israeli Supreme Court who can't stand Jews that believe in the land of Israel, that are loyal to Israel. And so how are we going to overturn a decision like this when we're dealing with authorities that have to make the decision that are so hostile to everything we stand for? How are we going to be able to overturn a decision in a situation like this? What's our strategy? Well, first of all, Meir Shitrit, the Interior Minister, is a politician. He wants to become Prime Minister of Israel. He has said that publicly. And so he would not want to do something that is very unpopular with the Israeli public or with Jews in general or with people in general, because Gentiles also have an impact on Israeli policies. Our Gentile friends can also influence Israeli policies, and we want Gentiles to also join our letter-writing campaign or our email campaign, which you can find on our forum. This is our website, and this is the address for our forum, which you should definitely join. It's a great, fascinating, historic forum, the best on the internet. You definitely should join our forum. But anyway, they are concerned about public opinion, whether it's American public opinion of Jews and Gentiles or whether it's public opinion within Israel, which obviously will decide their political future in future elections. So if they see that the people of Israel are against what they're doing, it can have an impact. We've got to show them that the people are against what they're doing. That's what we have to do. And there is no doubt that there is no way that the vast majority of Israeli Jews are going to agree with what they did to me. I have spoken to Israeli Jewish leftists who have said that they think what was done to me is a grotesque miscarriage of justice. Even leftists, who are not the majority, most Israeli Jews are not left-wing at all. Most Israeli Jews hate the left. But I have spoken even to leftists who have said this is an unbelievable injustice. Because if you explain to Israeli Jews what happened to me, the truth, that I was thrown out of Israel over 11 years ago, because I was the head of the Jewish Defense League, because I spent 5.5 years in prison here in the United States, and another 12 years on probation or parole or house arrest, 17.5 years total, because of my activities on behalf of Soviet Jewry, because we bombed Soviet diplomatic targets. We didn't injure anybody, but we damaged Soviet property. And I spent 17.5 years of my life either in prison or on probation or parole or house arrest because of those activities to save our people. And all of that was just to save our people. And you explain that to the average Israeli Jew. And because of that, I'm banned from going to the Jewish homeland and banned from going to Israel. But Arab Muslim Nazi terrorists, 80,000 of them, who murdered thousands of innocent Jewish men, women, and children, are welcomed into Israel with parades. You explain that to the average Israeli Jew, and I assure you, the vast majority of Israeli Jews do not agree with that, are not going to buy that. The vast majority. Now, you have self-hating Israeli Jews, including the people that are running Israel's government and Israel's Supreme Court. They are self-hating Jews. But the vast majority of Israeli Jews do not agree with their self-hating policies of the people that are running Israel. Why they elect them, that's a long story. We're not going to go into that now. Why do the American people elect American presidents and American Congresses that want to legalize all illegal aliens when the vast majority of Americans don't want to legalize illegal aliens? Or the vast majority of Americans don't want foreign aid, and yet the Congress and the president keep proposing more and more foreign aid, ripping off the American people to give foreign aid, which is terrible. So, the fact that the fact that you have politicians that are elected over and over again that do things that go against the will of the people, that doesn't mean that the people agree with them, and the people in Israel do not agree. And all the Israelis that I have spoken to about this case, and every time Israelis are exposed to this case, the vast majority of them completely disagree with what was done to me and consider it to be a terrible miscarriage of justice and a scandal. Really scandalous, evil behavior. And so that is the way we've got to work here. We've got to convince these politicians and the judges that the people do not agree with them, because the judges are also sensitive to that, because the judges do not want the people of Israel to wake up. Because if the people of Israel wake up and decide to throw those judges out and replace them with real Jewish patriots, that's something the left-wing judges in Israel that represent a small minority of Israeli Jews don't want to see. So if they think that the people are very, very much against this, that will also impact on the judges' decisions. I'll give you an illustration, an example of how these things can work in our favor. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but I'll give you an illustration of how it did work. The great Jewish hero Noam Federman was put in prison, a right-wing Jewish dissident named Noam Federman, a Jewish patriot, a wonderful, saintly, magnificent Jewish hero. Noam Federman, the father of 8 little children, was put in prison solely because of his political opinions. In Israel, they have what's called administrative detention. You can be thrown in prison without a trial, without the right to see a judge, without the right to an attorney, without any rights whatsoever. And it's called administrative detention. Completely anti-democratic. And they put him in prison under administrative detention and put him in the worst solitary confinement conditions imaginable. They tortured him. They literally tortured him. They put him in the worst conditions you can imagine. That anywhere, the conditions he was under would be considered torture in any civilized country. And they did it solely because of his political opinions, because he criticized them, because he said that this is a Bolshevik country, a Bolshevik dictatorship, and that and that the people of Israel have a right to replace these Bolshevik dictators. And they put him in prison to teach him a lesson and to show the people of Israel, don't you dare criticize us. Don't you dare say things like this against us. I mean, it's obscene, it's outrageous, it's fascistic, but that is what they did to Noam Federman, this heroic Jewish dissident. And the Israeli Supreme Court supported it, those phony hypocrites, and the Israeli politicians, nobody was against it. But the people of Israel, when they heard about it, were very much against it. The people of Israel overwhelmingly opposed it, just like the people of Israel that are exposed to what happened in my case overwhelmingly disagree with what happened in my case. You're not going to convince the people of Israel that Noam Federman should be put in solitary confinement in prison, and he stayed in prison for 9 months in the end because of this, until we got him out. But you're not going to convince them that Noam Federman should be thrown in prison just for speaking out, just for telling the truth, while Arab, Muslim, Nazi members of the Israeli parliament, of the Israeli Knesset, openly call for the destruction of Israel, openly call for the death of all Jews, Christians, and non-Muslim infidels, and not only are they not put in prison, they're allowed to serve in the Israeli parliament. They're allowed to serve in the Knesset. And they're being given the whole damn country. So the people of Israel did not approve of this. And the uproar among the people was so strong that even Israeli leftists from the Labour Party and Meretz, which are 2 extreme left Marxist parties in Israel, even they started protesting and saying, you've got to release Noam Federman. And in the end, the Israeli Supreme Court released him, even though they hate him. They hate all loyal, self-respecting Jewish heroes. Even though they hate him, they released him in the end. They ordered him released because they saw that the Israeli public was not going to tolerate this obscene miscarriage of justice. The same thing that happened in Noam Federman's case is the same situation we have to create in my case. They have to understand that Israeli public opinion is not going to say that Arafat and 80,000 Muslim terrorist mass murderers are welcome, but Chaim ben Pesach is not allowed to come into Israel. That is what we have to convey, and if we succeed in doing that, I'll get into Israel, and that will be the beginning of our effort to change the situation there. Shalom.